Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And if you're in Dubai, as Phoebe is, Phoebe, how are you? It's always good to be with you.
Yeah, greetings to all of you. And it is nice to be with you, Graham. And how are you?
I'm not doing too badly at all. And of course, we should make note of the fact that our other wonderful colleague, Mohammed Shukri, is not with us today. Let's just say he's in India on a book tour. That's pretty special, isn't it? So the book that he's just released, his own book, been published and is now available in India. I think he's at an Indian book fair today. I'm not sure. I think so. And it may be Mumbai. Again, I'm not sure. I should have checked these details. So that's really good. And we wish him all the best, great success for his publication. And I don't know that he's going to be with us next week because he's on a grand book tour of the Middle East, I think. I think his next stop is Egypt. So we wish him all the very best. And Mohammed, we miss you. That means we've got to work even harder. And that means that I'm going to draw on you even more, Phoebe. So I'm going to ask you, what did you learn this week?
Yeah, that's a great question, Graham. So I think as an entrepreneur, I, I'm learning many things, and especially one which I'm focusing these days is why learning is the key to leadership. Uh, so that is
Oh,
something which is resonating with me this week. How
yeah.
learning is too important, and especially the pace of change, the acceleration of change is quick, and how we should be prepared, and what as leaders we can do. And you always highlight leadership is everyone's business, and in that sense, what can we do to help ourselves learn as well as our team learn?
Absolutely. So last week, of course, we talked about artificial intelligence and the impact that that is going to have on us, and in a way that we cannot imagine, I'm sure, at this point, the impact that AI is going to have. And through all of this process as we move forward, there's learning. There's a whole lot of learning for all of us. Now, way back in one of our very early conversations, we talked about leaders developing leaders and helping leaders to learn how to become better leaders. But what you're talking about is really how leaders can help the team learn and the importance of learning. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And last week when we discussed about AI, I was also personally exploring some of the recent tools which are emerging in that space. So uh, imagine that we are having a conversation. We should be understanding what kind of tools are available and what we know about them, how it can be applied in our regular work life. So these stands out. And I remember the words of John F. Kennedy, which says that um, the quote starts like this: leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. Quote ends. So, we how can we help ourselves in the process, in this huge pace of change happening around us, and
So
learning
I have
and
got
learning plays a huge role there.
yeah, and I've got one or two phrases or questions that I use quite often. And one of them was what I said to you in my opening question, and that is, Phoebe, what did you learn this week? In the workplace, we know that sometimes there are difficulties. Sometimes there are challenges. Sometimes there are obstacles that are a little bit difficult to get over. And what is the fundamental question? This comes out of the leadership challenge. What is the fundamental question for each of those when they occur? And that is, what did you learn? When people make mistakes, what did you learn? So I think that it is important for leaders not only to encourage others to develop their leadership skills, but for leaders also to say, what did I learn yesterday that I can be a better leader today? What did I learn yesterday? because guess what? We keep learning. As long as we're going, we're learning. Years ago, when I was doing a whole lot of different workshops, quite often I can remember I'd point in a part of the world where there were lots of trees. I can remember pointing out to trees outside the room that we were in, and I might say, see the leaves on the trees? Well, ever those trees have got leaves, they are growing. If they lose those leaves, those trees, usually, unless they're deciduous trees, it means they are dying. If those trees are deciduous trees, it's a period of renewal when they lose the leaves. So the point I'm making is, while ever we are alive, like those trees, we are growing and learning all the time. And I think that, years ago, leaders, sorry, not that word, managers expected that people would just know things. And it's your responsibility to know these things. I say, as you've brought up, it's the responsibility of the leader to develop a learning culture. What did you learn today? So give me some more specifics on this, Phoebe.
You rightly pointed out to learning culture, and that I want to link it to leadership challenge. And the first practice, or the model the way comes to my mind at this point, and I reflect on an incident which happened in our workplace in the past, where we have conversations in group setting, and this can be a good takeaway for people. Like each week, what is one thing which you have learned, and sharing it with the colleagues.
Really?
And this simple act brings in a lot of information. Like sometimes people have come across some good practice which they have either learned, or someone have a conversation with a colleague in another organization, and that led to insight into some practices which we may be able to adopt. And the way in which this conversation shaped, without looking into specific aspect or agenda setting, but what kind of formal and informal learning takes place. It can be a conversation in the family, like the kids informing parents about something which they might have tried, and the learning and how we can adapt it into our workplace. And this simple practice, having a weekly conversations in a 30 to 40 minutes environment, provided us rich information of what we can also do, what we can also take away as a practice to our work. So as I referred to the model the way in the leadership challenge, imagine that if we can set it as an example in our workplace, how can that simple act transform the way in which learning happens? So that is the initiative which anyone in a workplace can take. And as you always highlight, leadership is everyone's business. Let us assemble the people and see what they have learned in the last week, what we can adopt.
So this is where I'm going to make it a little more formal, if you like, a little more set in practice. So why not every second team meeting? You can do it every first one, I don't care. But what about every second team meeting? Item number 2, maybe item number 3 on the agenda is, what did you learn this week? Learned the last meeting. And we go around the room. What did you learn? And everybody will know that that's on the agenda, and they'll come to the meeting with some contribution rather than just dropping it and saying, well, what did you learn? Oh, and I don't remember. So you have it as a regular part of the meeting. It doesn't have to be every meeting, but a regular part. When you talk, as you did a moment ago, about formal and therefore informal learning, it highlighted to me the importance and the value of informal learning. Informal learning can occur in a corridor conversation. Informal learning can occur in a meeting where you hear of someone doing something and it worked for them. This informal learning quite often is going to be far more effective than formal learning, and I'm going to come to that in a moment. But in this informal situation, we are more likely to be able to relate what we're learning to the practical application of that. If someone has made a mistake, let's say I've made a mistake, which I do a lot. We make a mistake and we learn from that mistake. It's going to be directly related to the process of what we're doing. So if someone says, I had a problem with this procedure that I was working on for the company, it's a procedure that's been around a long time. I did this when I should have done this, or this is now happening. This is a direct, informal learning outcome that applies practically to the organization's operation, right? So we've got to share this learning with the others, and I'm sure that that learning is going to be much more effective overall than the formal learning. So let me now address the formal learning in terms of a procedure or practice that we can do to make that become important for the rest of the team. And here it is. I believe that if someone has been away on a learning program, this could be a 2-day workshop. This could be part of their MBA. I don't mind. But I would hope that the leader and the team members could encourage learning from that person who's been on a formal learning process. What he or she learned this week at that lecture, what he or she learned or took away from the 2-day training program that they've just been on, that is going to relate to what people are doing in the workplace every day or in their lives. And this creates an extended learning for everybody. And one of the things I think that might come out of this is that people will really kind of look forward to coming to these learning moments. And then you might take it further and say, in terms of a learning, you might put it into the office newsletter or something, just to get things out there that people become aware of the information about learning. Years ago, this didn't exist. We didn't have the opportunity to get information to people to help them learn new things. We didn't do it. We didn't have that, but it's got to be encouraged, and encouraged by the leader. There's two.
And Graham, you actually pointed how that creates a learning culture and helps the team thrive in that moment. And one more thing is, in these days, many organizations are facing the challenge of employee engagement. And, the organization spend huge amount of money to complete the employee engagement survey. But these simple acts of coming together, sharing that learning which one person have had during this process, actually also is an opportunity to build the connection process. And in one way, this process also helps. And I like to bring the leadership challenge the process here, because these conversations might lead to challenging our existing process, which can be then looked into, which may lead to innovation in the workplace. So learning culture is also creating engagement. It is also creating innovative processes within the organization.
So here's a slight variation on what you're broadly suggesting. And I think what you've said is absolutely right. At the end of workshops, I will often set up, in fact, not often, every time, I set up small groups within the participant cohort. And I say, for 3 or 4 of you in a small group, and I will set them up, ideally not that those who don't work perhaps so close together, so that if I've got a number of people from across the range in the company, then I can have people from different departments and different divisions. Okay, not all together, that's good. 3 of you or 4 of you, I want you to meet every 3 weeks, and this is what I want you to talk about. I want you to talk about what you've done as a leader in the last 3 weeks. Now, what I extend that to is, what have you learned in the past 3 weeks? And this is a sharing of information throughout the organization. So a leader might look for opportunities to do what I'm just suggesting that I do, to have people in the company have little learning pods or learning cohorts, call it what you like, but where they meet, and you can do it on Zoom informally every 3 weeks or whatever the time frame, to then pose that same question. So what have you learned since we last talked? And sharing learning in those small groups. I think 3 or 4 is probably the ideal number. Much larger than that, and people will feel that they don't have much opportunity to talk. This little process, of course, needs to have the buy-in of everybody who's part of it. They need to know that they've got to put in as well as get out of this. Maybe it's a half-hour call that they talk about what they've learned and what they've done, and share the learning across the teams that are in the organization. What do you think about that, Phoebe?
No, that's something which, again, I see the opportunity where we come every week as such a learning opportunity from each other, and I need to also try to connect it with, the leadership challenge, inspiring a shared vision, because we are looking ahead. We are trying to take ourselves into a new place with this new learning. And learning comes as a strategy where we as leaders can see pathway to take us to a new and envision a new future. So as you said, these conversations in a pod or a small cohort will definitely enrich. That is one. Create curiosity, and it helps in understanding what is happening around us in this process, and also position the organization effectively to capitalize on the opportunities which are lying ahead. So I see what you said as something which is very, very strategic in nature. As leaders, how strategic learning is become evident in this conversation.
What you just said prompts a suggestion in my mind. Why wouldn't it be interesting if on the website, the senior executives would challenge this, and so would, I'm sure, the communication director. But why wouldn't it be a really fantastic sentence to put on the website? We are a learning organization. It doesn't matter what the we are a learning organization. No, you're not a university. You're not a secondary college. You could be an insurance company. You could be making nuts and bolts. You could be producing motor vehicles. We are a learning organization. Now, I want to just touch on something which I've never talked about in this forum or any similar forum. And it's about the idea of setting up little groups of people to meet and talk. Some years ago, now we know we've talked about the fact that I'm a certified master of the Leadership Challenge. There are a number of certified masters around the world, about 60, I believe, at the moment. Many of them, perhaps most of them, in the United States. And quite some years ago, I said to Jim Kouzes, this is a wonderful community to be part of, but I'm not part of it enough. I wasn't in the United States, and I was somewhat removed in that context. So he thought that what I had was a really good idea, and that was to set up what we get called pods. And these pods are small groups of certified masters of the Leadership Challenge. We meet for a 1-hour Zoom call every month. Now, we set up the first one, and the 7 of us in this first one. Actually, one's no longer with us, but we have 6 now. But the point that I'm getting to is that I then went and established a number of other of these pods where certified masters who we believe should know quite a lot about leadership. That's why they're certified masters. But I wanted to learn from others. I wanted to learn from other certified masters. And 2 of the certified masters that are in the pod that I'm part of, are 2 of the most experienced certified masters. And one of them particularly says, I want to learn from the new people who are coming into this cohort, into the Leadership Challenge. Not just our cohort, because Our group are the same ones that have been meeting now for 8 years every month for 1 hour, 8 years. Now, not everybody's there every time. I think I've missed 2 in 8 years. This is a learning pod. This is where people who are regarded because they're certified masters as knowing quite a bit about the leadership challenge, but we still meet on a one-on-one, on a once-a-month basis to learn from each other. So take that as a model, if you like, and apply that in organizations. But the specific purpose of learning for 1 hour. By the way, with this 1 hour, I set it all up. I set up the dates with everybody. I send the Zoom link, and I make sure, and everybody, there's no big deal about it, but it is 1 hour. We finish on the hour. We don't go over. It's well disciplined. We know that they've all got other things to do. 1 hour of learning. Why can't we replicate that in other organizations everywhere?
Yeah, I think this idea of having that conversation and the continuing of the same over a number of years shows that there is huge value which is being exchanged in these conversations. And
Let me just
not only that,
let me just
it,
let me just hold you there. I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done this. I apologize. But one person who's a certified master, who when this person became a certified master, mind you, they have a PhD in leadership. I haven't got a PhD in leadership. They said, we really want to get into a pod because we want to learn. Hang on, haven't you got a PhD? We want to continue to learn. I apologize again for interrupting you, Phoebe.
no, that is a value, which people can have. This informal conversation actually encourages us to see and be motivated in that process. So that's the key, where people are keen to come and be part of that process. And I think I am inspired to take an action at this point now to invite the members of the community who are listening. So from now onwards, I am going to create a weekly conversation space, which will be notified in LinkedIn in my aspect. And if you are interested, we will be holding it virtually and share the learnings which we had in the week. So this is an action item which I am taking today to be implemented. And this conversation was an encouragement for me to take action on that. Thank you, Graham. So one aspect also which I want to reiterate here is, it creates attitudes, and attitudes become the culture.
Yes. And with that attitude that becomes the culture, we can then change the culture positively, and we can change the world. We really can.
Yeah.
We'll continue to learn until we are no longer physically in this space, no longer physically on this earth. We will continue to learn. And some people would say that when we leave this space here, we continue our learning journey beyond the time that we've had on this earth. So learning is always a part of what we should be doing. And leaders must encourage learning in the organization. And when leaders encourage learning, they will learn also. Because it might surprise you. I don't know, it might surprise you, but leaders don't know everything.
Yeah. We all like to be in the learning process all the time.
Yes, absolutely. I'm constantly learning. I bought something from a store the other day that was mechanical and it needed to be assembled. And I learned a lot in assembling this, I got to tell you, but I've assembled it correctly and it works. And when it works, there is a wonderful sense of satisfaction that erases the frustration that I felt along the way. I'm thinking, whoa, I made it work. I learned how to do this. Wow. Phoebe, I thank you for your time and for your wisdom today. And we will be together again 1 week from today. Thank you, Phoebe.
Thank you, Graham. So I just want to inform our listeners, viewers, continuous learning is a critical component of effective leadership. Connect with us, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts, and join, if time permits, to the learning conversational space, which I will be posting on LinkedIn. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bibi.